Michelle, and so I'm going to hand the mic over to her.
All right. So yeah, Amanda shared with you that I had a long corporate career, actually 30 years, and worked my way up to a fairly senior position in human resources. And the story that I want to share, the context of it, is something that I think you need to understand so that the story makes sense. So basically, back in 2006 to 2007, I was going through a divorce from a 20-year marriage. Very difficult, but I was also holding down a job at this national restaurant company as the senior vice president of human resources. And at that stage of my life, I would tell you that my identity was pretty much rooted in my marriage, my family, and my career. Well, here I was, I have a son who's grown, so he had already left the house. So here I am going through a divorce, and I'm in this very senior corporate position, and I just hit the bottom, like I was in the pits. Everything that my life was about, it just seemed like, well, what am I going to do? How do I manage this? My job was feeling empty and lifeless. And so I thought, so I don't know how much I want to keep doing this go corporate thing. But on the other hand, my family had fallen apart. So that's about when Jesus usually finds you. And I, at that time, was like 54 years old. I believed there was a God. I went to Sunday school when I was a kid, but I had never let Jesus into my life, never. And so Jesus met me powerfully at that time, but I wasn't one of those instant conversions. Like, I wrestled because I knew, well, I didn't know, but I was beginning to learn that following Jesus was going to take me down a path that was totally foreign, totally different from the way I normally manage my life, which was, I was in charge and I was doing it all, right? And so I wrestled with that. Like, I didn't know what it was going to be like, and it was scary. It was really scary. Anyway, so one of the things that we believe at Needle's Eye is that your mission field, if you work in the marketplace, your mission field is your work. Like, you were called there, and that is your mission field. Now, you also have, your families and that kind of thing, but you have an opportunity to co-labor with Jesus in the redemption of all things in your workplace. But if you're like me, you don't really know what that means. You don't really know what that's like. You don't really know what it's going to take. And some of that can be really scary. Anyway, so I was blessed to have two people who were coworkers come into my life during this period that I just described, who were able to come alongside me, one come alongside me quite a bit, and another one make a big impact, like on a one-time thing. So I'm going to tell you both of those stories. So I told you I was the head of human resources, and I hired a guy. His name was Tom. And Tom and his wife, in order to take this job, had to relocate from another state. And they were very strong believers, which of course I didn't really know when I was hiring them. That obviously wasn't a criteria or anything. and had done quite a bit of praying about, should we take this job in Indianapolis, which is where we were. And so they had decided to come. And Tom, even though I was his boss, just didn't worry about the fact that I was his boss. And he probably more than anyone in that period, probably over a 9 to 10 month period, he would stay after work and we would talk about the Bible. We would talk about Jesus. We would talk about what does following Jesus look like. I would give him all of my fears and he would tell me, where to go in the Bible to get reassurance. He'd pray with me. He was amazing. And little known to me, he kind of roped his wife into it too. And so they were praying for me on a regular basis. So, and I'm just kind of wandering around like, oh, this is so scary. I don't know what it all means. And I think what was super scary was that I was getting the inkling that what it was going to mean is that God was going to ask me to quit my job and do something different. Now, that's really scary, right? Like, it's like, whoa. Especially when you'd been working your whole life like I had in this career that, went up the ladder and here I was. And so I just thought, oh, I can't do this. Anyway, so Tom is working with me, right? And then one day, I have to put my glasses on. I'm going to read something to you. So one day, I walked into my office and had an email that had come in overnight. I'm going to read it to you. The email was from a lady named Rayanne, and Rayanne was a payroll clerk at the same company where I worked, and I was the senior vice president of human resources. I'd never met Rayanne, okay? So here's what Rayanne wrote to me. Roxanne, this is the second time I've tried to send this email, and I know that if I don't, I won't get any rest. I'm to tell you that all will be okay, that whatever it is, it will be all right. And you will be all right also. I don't think that there's anything going on, but I'm just to relay this message. This Sunday morning, you fell on my mind, and the Spirit of the Lord stated that I was to pray for you, that I was to call out your name during altar pray at my church, so that not only would I pray, but also my church. Then I was to send this email telling you that it's going to be all right. End of email. Okay, so I'm like freaked out, right? And just so you know, I immediately went to Rayanne's office and reassured her and thanked her and blessed her because clearly she sent this at 10 at night. She clearly wrestled with sending this email. And you can imagine, like, you're in a clerical position and you're writing an email to, one of the top executives in your company. And that takes courage, And she wrestled with that. Anyway, so I went down, I reassured her and hugged her and told her, it just blew me away. But picture, if you will, that you're kind of, I call myself like a baby Christian at that point because I hadn't really ever brought Jesus into my life. So picture that God is saying, I see you and I've got you. And I'm going to tell you directly, and I'm going to do it in a way so that you're clear that it's me. Right? Right? Anyway, so that was amazing. I was so excited about that. Obviously, talked that over with Tom. He also was kind of blown away, actually. So that was cool. So probably about 3-4 months later, I finally came to the point where I realized that what God was asking me to do was to quit my job. And so I did. I quit my job. And I had no idea what I was going to do after that. And this story isn't about kind of what happens after that very much, but let me just say that after I quit, I waited for 2 years not knowing what God really wanted me to do. And those were really tough 2 years. And my theory is that God was kind of training me or teaching me that you've been in charge like your whole life. Now you get to wait. And now you get to sit in what it looks like to wait for me to tell you what to do next. Everything in me wanted to like plan or do something or make another, but I just kept resisting that. Anyway, that's not really the story. So the story is that I talked to my friend Tom. I left the company, and then come to find out he left that same company because he'd gotten another job probably about 6 months later. And once again, he and his wife relocated to another state. And he said he and his wife, one time when they were praying, were kind of trying to discern, like, why were we in Indianapolis for a year and a half? Like, what was up with that? Like that was such a funny detour. They had been in California, and then they come to Indianapolis, and then they moved, I think, to Wisconsin. And he said through prayer, they realized that they were there for me.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. So I feel amazingly blessed. God's met me in some other ways as well. Since then, that was 16 years ago. And my life looks completely different than it did before, but it's been awesome. I feel like being here now in Richmond is where I'm supposed to be. Being at Needles Eye is where I'm supposed to be. And just so you all understand, I think my passion for urging people and encouraging people to kind of be bold in the workplace is because look what happened to me. And I don't know if I would have made the decisions that I made if it wasn't for Tom and Rayanne, And it wasn't about evangelizing. Like, Tom wasn't trying to lead me to Christ. He was just allowing me to wrestle with him. I also was going to church, and, I got some help there too. But I would say those two people really helped me have the courage to take the next step, which was going to totally change my life. And I don't know if I would have done it without them.
That's awesome.
So that's my story. And if you hear me later, if you ever hear me, talking about, oh my gosh, like, we just got to get in there, and I think one of the things we're so clear about with Needles Eye is that we just want to help you guys to connect with one another and then to create the kind of community where you can encourage and support one another and then take those bold steps in the workplace. We have so much that Christ has given us. He's given us power. He's given us the Holy Spirit. He's given us gifts. He's given us the fruits of the Spirit. I mean, he gives us so much, and he is hoping, and it's part of his plan, that we can take that and make a difference and represent who he is to others. So that's my passion. I love it. I love discipling people to help them grow into everything that God means them to be, and I look forward to doing that with all of you in our Needles Eye community. So thank you so much.